topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello, and welcome to It's Your Voice, the show that hosts enriching conversations in diversity. My name is Bahia Yakzan. I am a core alignment coach and a diversity educator, which means I work with organizations and individuals who want to change patterns or habits they have that are not serving them well or not serving others well, and replacing them with patterns that align with their values much better. And it's a great pleasure to do that. It's also a great pleasure to host this show. We have a guest tonight that I'm really looking forward to talking with, Ryan Davis, who is running for Yolo County Judge. And the show today is titled Ryan Davis, Dedicated to the Fair Administration of Justice. That line caught me because it's so important. I'm going to read a bit of his background before we bring him on. Commissioner Ryan Davis joined the Superior Court of Sacramento County in 2023. He initially presided over traffic, small claims, and unlawful detainer cases, and now presides over a family law department. Prior to the bench, Commissioner Davis served as a Deputy Attorney General at California's Department of Justice, where he represented Californians in a variety of complex legal cases, including work surrounding constitutional and statutory law, government operations, elections, state mandates, criminal law, and firearms. Before that, he spent a decade representing men and women on California's death row in post-conviction proceedings, including at the Office of the State Public Defender and at the Federal Public Defender's Office for the Central District of California. As an adjunct professor at the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, Commissioner Davis taught a course on capital punishment and related constitutional issues. He received a Juris Doctorate degree from Berkeley Law in 2009. Ryan Davis, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, it sounds like you have a vast array of experience.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm proud of the experience I gained both as a lawyer and now as a judicial officer, and looking to use all of that experience in the service of my home community, which is Yolo County.
Well, what made you decide that you wanted to run for judge?
Yeah, sure. So it was about 5 years ago, just a little over 5 years ago, that I set this particular goal to become a judge. So I've had this goal in mind, and kind of jumped at the opportunity when it presented itself this year. There is going to be an open seat, and I learned that there was likely to be an open seat kind of early in the fall of 2025. And so thought that this was, the right time for me to step in and give it a shot and run a campaign. So it was 5 years ago. I was still at the State Public Defender's Office at the time, but started to think that a good use of my skills and my experience in the service of the public would be to become a judge. And so started taking concrete steps to prepare myself for this moment by moving from that criminal law work, which I'm of course happy to talk more about, to the Attorney General's office so that I could gain civil litigation experience, which I didn't yet have at the time, and then became a court commissioner a few years ago, and in that capacity, which also obviously happy to tell you more about what exactly a commissioner is, but gave me the opportunity to start doing the work of a judge, and I've been doing that for 3 years. So I just think now is the right time. I'm ready. I'm prepared to serve, and so here we are.
So I read in one of the articles about you and your work that you already have training. Is that from your the commissioner position, that you've already had the types of foundational training that a judge would need to have, that you've already have it?
Yes, exactly. So what court commissioners are is it's a type of judicial officer that we have here in California State Court. And commissioners so the law provides that commissioners have the same authority as judges over just two kinds of cases, so traffic and small claims. So the idea being that courts can hire commissioners to help just manage the caseload that the judges need to deal with. And so often, commissioners are put in those sorts of assignments, the assignments that they have the same authority as judges over, traffic and small claims. But the thing is, commissioners can also preside over any kind of case as long as the parties don't object to having their case in front of a commissioner. And so I'm in a general family law assignment. So I truly do the exact same day-to-day work as the judges in Sacramento that have that same assignment. The only distinction is that when the parties first come into my courtroom, like at the outset of the case, they can decline to agree to have their case in front of me, and then they get sent down the hall to a different department that is staffed by a judge. But the truth is, few do that. It just really makes no difference to them, right? Commissioners you actually have to have the same amount of experience as judges have to have in order to become a commissioner or a judge, which is 10 years of experience as a practicing lawyer. And commissioners, the difference is that judges are either appointed by the governor or elected, whereas commissioners are hired by the judges of that court. And then, like I said, they're used in all sorts of different ways. Sort of different counties use them differently. And I'm in a family law assignment now. But so when you become a commissioner or a judge, either way, you're really treated the same. And you have to go through certain training. Every new judge and commissioner in the state of California has to go through both what's called new judge orientation, which is a 1-week-long program that's focused mostly on the ethics of being a judicial officer and the ethical rules that apply. And then there's a 2-week program called Judicial College, which is more like the substance of doing the work of a judge. So there will be like a portion on evidence and another portion on dealing with mental health, or another on self-represented litigants and how to approach those cases. So all new commissioners and judges go through that same training. And so, yes, I've already, completed all of that and have now been, had the opportunity to continue to develop my judicial skills in that role. And like I said, it's been 3 years now that I've been in the role of a court commissioner.
And so you have experience of like holding court, so to speak, like running a court. And I don't know, do you schedule the docket? I mean, do you do all that kind of lining up?
So what I do day to day is just exactly what a judge does. So I have my own courtroom. I've got a courtroom clerk and a bailiff, and I wear the robe and I preside over cases. And so, the way the docket itself is put together is kind of behind the scenes by court staff and clerks. But the judge's role is to prepare for any given day, what's on calendar that day. So you get the files in advance, you review the files, you read, everything that the parties have filed to tee up what's before you that day. And in family law, that can be issues around divorce and dividing property, for example. It's a lot of custody and visitation issues. And the same case can come back repeatedly, particularly on those issues, because, of course, circumstances are always changing. You're talking about children growing, and their circumstances are always changing. So yeah, child custody and visitation, domestic violence restraining orders we deal with in family court. So you review. So yeah, my day-to-day work is review the files, preside over cases, and that can include taking evidence, ruling on objections, entertaining legal arguments, and then ultimately making decisions and writing orders. So yeah, that's the day-to-day work that I'm doing now. It's wearing the robe and doing the work of a judge.
Well, while we're right there, like about making decisions, like hearing both sides, weighing evidence. I'm just trying to formulate this question. I'm just like wondering, what is it that in with all your experience and training, that helps you know, like, the right decision?
Yeah, well, it's a fair question. I mean, sometimes the law is clear enough that, I mean, so obviously at all times, right, the all that you've been trusted to do is to apply the law to the facts that are presented to you in that case. And so doing this work, it's really a case by case type of job. You get the facts as they're presented to you in that case too. You don't consider outside information, and then you apply the law to those facts in making your decision. Sometimes that could be cut and dry, like if it's a discovery issue. So one party has made requests for production of documents, so is asking the other party to give them certain information. That party has a deadline by which to object to those requests if they want to, and so I'm just using this as an example. But so then if they don't, then those objections are waived, and they just kind of have to respond. So that's there's a statute that says that, right? And so sometimes the decision is easy from that standpoint. I mean, the law is clear, the facts are clear, and when these are the facts, the law says this is what happens. What's more challenging, and it comes up all the time in family law, is like on those child custody and visitation issues, the law often is just that the judicial officer needs to make decisions that are in the best interests of the child or children. And sometimes, I mean, it's somewhat more complicated than this, but sometimes that's really like all that the law, has to say on the topic. And so your task is to figure out over the course of a pretty short hearing, what is in the best interests of a child, whether they're going to be with, one parent just every other weekend, whether the parents are going to have a, 50-50 schedule. And sometimes you're getting into the nitty gritty, like what time are they going to exchange? Where's the exchange location going to be? Who can participate in exchanges if it's not just, two parents, but there's other family members or friends that are involved in the child's life. So the real challenge in those cases is to get the information that you need in order to make a decision like that. And often in family law, you're dealing with people who aren't represented. So they come to court not really knowing how to prepare, and not knowing how to present evidence, not knowing what the rules are, what the procedural rules are, what the rules of evidence are. And so it can be a real challenge. And the other thing that a judge has to contend with is, especially those self-represented litigants, they're nervous, right? They come to court. Yeah. It's kind of a scary, intimidating place. So one of the things I really work hard to do is to strike that right balance between formality, right? Because it's a courtroom and these are serious decisions that needs to be made, and you need to convey that you're taking this seriously. So I don't think, joking around and that sort of thing is appropriate. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I try to balance that formality with approachability. So try to just make people feel comfortable enough that they're able to kind of gather themselves and tell their story. Because if they're lacking the capacity to even do that in the moment, then, I mean, there's two problems. One is you as the judicial officer don't get the information you need. And then the second is that they leave not feeling like they got their perspective told. And the best case scenario is you, the judicial officer, get to a good answer that you feel confident in based on the facts and law, and the litigants leave feeling like they had that opportunity to be heard. Often somebody or both will leave not getting what they wanted. But one hopes, and it's not going to happen every time, but one hopes that the litigants leave feeling like, well, that judge heard me. I had the opportunity to say what I needed to say, and all that I said was taken into account, and a decision was made. I think that makes it easier for the litigants to kind of live with the result. And, so, yeah.
I was a court advocate for years, and having seen the process many times, I really appreciate the approachability factor. That makes a huge difference. If the judge seems human and seems like they see you as human, just like you said, in a formal, respectful, way to that they feel heard. That's just critical. That's critical for people to feel like they're being served well.
Yeah, agreed. And I think some, I've seen it. I've seen judges who I think are making the mistake of being overly stern, overly just intimidating in their demeanor. Another thing that I think is important, especially again with self-represented litigants, which by the way is a growing number across the courts. There are more and more people who are coming to court without a lawyer, and so you really have to, I think, be good at dealing with that situation. So the demeanor part is really important. So is, I think, just explaining to people what's happening and why and what happens next. Sometimes you can avoid, I find, sometimes, not always, but you can avoid parties interrupting one another if you just explain at the outset, I'm going to hear from you, and then I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to hear from you. You're both going to have the opportunity to be heard, but I need to hear from you one at a time. Just so this is what's going to happen. I'm going to start with you, and even the reason is helpful, right? So that they understand that you're not just being arbitrary. This party filed the request that's at issue here, and so it's appropriate for me to hear from that party first. So I will start there, and then I will turn to you, the other party, and you'll have your opportunity to be heard. And then I will come back to the first party if you have something more that you want to add or to respond to, that sort of thing.
That's very helpful. Yeah, it is. It can be super intimidating when you don't have representation, and what's going to happen next. So that's great. I know that's very helpful to people. Well, before we just I kind of want to zoom in a little bit more about the challenge of having to make really difficult decisions that impact people's lives potentially for the rest of their lives. And then I'll zoom back out and ask more questions about the campaign and other experiences. But it just struck me as your experience. I mean, also that you taught I don't know if you still do that.
I haven't been over the last, it's been, I guess it was last fall, not 2025, but 2024. And then decided that I just couldn't make it work because I was traveling all the way to Berkeley. And when I started teaching that class, I was working from home either most or all of the time. And so it was easy to just kind of make my way to Berkeley whenever, worked in the day. But now that I'm a court commissioner, it's the kind of job that you have to be, there. And so I can't really leave early. And so I would rush out the door at 4:30 or 5 and have to drive all the way to Berkeley. So I hope to teach again, but my goal would be to pick up a class at UC Davis, which I did teach one class one semester at UC Davis, but most of the teaching I did was at Berkeley. So I do hope to do it again, but I'm not at the moment doing that.
Okay. And the subject you were teaching was about capital litigating, like capital punishment, and that whole that you represented women and men who were post-conviction on death row. I don't know anything that you want to share about that, because I just feel like that must have been very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, I mean, it's heavy work, obviously. I mean, I'll just, I guess go ahead and take this opportunity to share that kind of what got me interested in going to law school in the first place was an interest in doing that particular kind of work. So I had, as a young person, some strong views about what I perceived as, well, I'll just say kind of concerns about how criminal justice is administered, and had some concerns about the death penalty in particular. I'm cautious in the way I word that because I'm now a judicial officer and I'm a judicial candidate, and so I truly am committed to being neutral on all things, and I am totally committed in this role, and would be committed in the role of Yolo County judge to following the law, period. And it isn't up to a judge to decide what the law is, but it was the case as a young person that I had some concerns, and so my hero when I was in college was a lawyer named Brian Stevenson, who is a civil rights and post-conviction and death penalty post-conviction attorney in the South, in Alabama. Just an amazing person and an amazing lawyer. If you have the opportunity to see him speak, you should take it. You should read his book. It's called Just Mercy, and they made a movie about his book, also called Just Mercy. So he was my hero as a young person, and I wanted to be like him when I grew up. And so when I went to law school, I was specifically, like, the goal was to become a public defender, and the goal was to someday do death penalty work. I was fortunate to graduate from Berkeley Law School, where they have what's called the Berkeley Law Death Penalty Clinic, which allows law students to work on real death penalty cases post-conviction. So, like, not at the trial level, but after someone's been tried and convicted and sentenced to death, and now it's their appeals, or there are other post-conviction processes, state habeas and federal habeas. So anyway, at Berkeley Law School, I got to do that work. And then, of course, I think that helped me to find my way into the positions that I had as a lawyer for most of my career as a lawyer, which included representing men and women on death row. And yeah, it's heavy subject matter. I mean, the crimes are, by definition, right, because these are death penalty cases, the most serious crimes. And so that's hard to deal with. You have to know your case well, so you have to know all of the facts, and the facts can be, troubling, I think, to say the least. You're also, when you're representing people on death row in these cases, you're often investigating their entire background in order to make a case that perhaps death wasn't the appropriate penalty here. And so you go through their entire social background, all of their, childhood and the trauma that they experienced if they did, or the mental health challenges if they had them, or substance abuse challenges if they had those. So it's a lot of heavy subject matter. But I was proud of the work. I mean, and I liked my job, and I was very proud to do that. It's what I wanted to do. And it was, through my experience at having gone to Berkeley Law School and participating in the clinic, that I met, the faculty members there that run that clinic. I stayed in touch with them throughout my career, and they helped me to connect with the right person to get the gig teaching the class on the death penalty and the Constitution at Berkeley. So yeah, that really defined my career for a decade before I made this more recent choice, although now it's been 5 years, to pursue something else, and specifically to pursue the goal of becoming a judge.
Well, thank you for going into that. That's very interesting to hear. And so you're also on a what does it mean to be a member of the Judicial Council?
Yeah, sure. So the Judicial Council is the governing, like, the administrative and policy making body for the entire state judiciary. So it's a body of, oh gosh, I don't know that I know the exact number off the top of my head, but maybe 20 something people who are judges or Court of Appeal justices. And there's a few spots for attorneys. It's chaired by the Chief Justice. So the Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court. There's another Chief Justice. There's another Supreme Court Justice who's also on the council. And there's a spot on the council that's reserved for a court commissioner. So to ensure that that voice is also heard. And so I'm currently in that spot. And so when I became a commissioner, one of my colleagues in Sacramento was a commissioner at the time, and he was in that spot on the Judicial Council. And so, and then he became a judge. He was appointed by Governor Newsom and became a judge. So he had to come off. And so he encouraged me to put my name in. Well, actually, there's like a nomination process. So he put my name in, and ultimately you get selected and appointed by the Chief Justice. So it's, for one thing, it's a real honor to just be in that role and to get to sit around that table and participate in decision-making that affects the entire judicial system in California. So the sorts of things that the Judicial Council deals with is managing the judiciary's budget. That's a big one. But also things like court rules. So there's the California rules of court that apply in all different counties. And then within counties, there are local rules, but the California rules of court apply everywhere. And then all of the forms that are used in the system, and there's a lot of them. The Judicial Council is the body that approves all those rules of court, or amending the rules of court, or new forms, or amending forms. Jury instructions are approved by the Judicial Council, and many, many other things. But so it's what's useful about it for me too, and in the context that I'm in now of running for judges, I can say that I have knowledge of and experience in working at the state level, and so have a sense of what sort of issues are coming up for the judiciary generally. Of course, one of those, like any part of the government, is just limited resources. But other specific things like lack of court reporters or qualified interpreters, and what can we do about those things. And so I'm just prepared to ensure that Yolo County's interests are well served by the Judicial Council and the decision making that goes on there.
Yeah, it would be very helpful to a county that you represent to have awareness of the issues in the state, arising in the state.
Yeah. And I hope to continue. So I will, if I'm successful in this election, I will lose my spot on the Judicial Council, because again, it's for a commissioner. Actually, my term is up in September anyway, and I didn't put in to renew because I'm pursuing this, and I didn't want to, win the election and then become a judge and then have to, to put them in a bad situation. So my term will end in September either way. But there's the Judicial Council itself, but then there's all of these advisory committees below it, like for every subject matter. Like there's a collaborative court advisory committee, and there's a civil law advisory committee, and a criminal law, and juvenile, and family. And it's really those advisory committees, honestly, that do a lot of the heavy lifting. They're the ones, if there's like a new rule of court that's needed, for example, or a new form, they're the ones who take a close look, create, edits, and then kind of send it up to the Judicial Council to vote on. So I would look forward to taking the opportunity to join one or more of those advisory committees as a judge in Yolo County, and or join the Judicial Council again someday as a judge. And just the good news is I kind of have a good sense of how that whole system works. I know what the Judicial Council is up to and how its decision-making happens and how one goes about getting involved. And so I would certainly intend to pursue that, as a Yolo County judge.
What's the term limit to being a member on the Judicial Council?
I don't know that, I'm not sure that there is a term limit. I think there is. I'm not aware that there is one. I think there's not, but I'm not 100% certain of that.
Well, this is a little bit of a pivot away from the judicial details. But we can always go back. We have time. But I'm just curious about what. Well, I guess before I want to ask about the campaign, but But do you want to say any more about your qualifications before I ask, like, how's the campaign going?
Yeah, well, sure. I guess, one thing that I would add is just, so, I kind of already covered that, I did all this work as a public defender and a death penalty lawyer, and I was really passionate about that work and proud to do it and all of that good stuff. But then 5 years ago made this goal. And in order to prepare for it, I went to the Attorney General's office so that I could get civil litigation experience, and got that. And so that's valuable. But the other thing I did was I started immediately volunteering as a pro tem judge. So pro tem judges are lawyers who go through a training and then volunteer their time to fill in for judges. And it's usually like low-level cases like traffic and small claims that pro tems are used for. And so the first time I had the opportunity to put on the robe and do the work of a judge was in Yolo County as a pro tem. So I started doing that, then went to the Attorney General's office. I did civil litigation there, and then became a court commissioner. So, I guess, what I would say just as far as my qualifications are concerned is, first and foremost, the most important qualification is just that I have judicial experience. And I think that's why I have over 50 judges supporting and endorsing my candidacy is because, they who know the work best just recognize the value in judicial experience. And I've already got it. But also I have that breadth of experience because I've got criminal law, lots of it, and then also civil litigation, and then now family law as a judicial officer. And one of the reasons I emphasize that in this campaign is because people think of criminal law first. I think a lot, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people, when they think of what happens in court, and that may be because jury service is one of their main sort of contacts with the court. Could be that that's just what's on TV or on movies, because criminal law is a good place for drama. It's also just true that criminal law takes up a large amount of judicial and court resources. It is a big part of what courts do, but it's not all that courts do, and it's not even the majority, right? So all the other subject matters combined, civil and probate and family and juvenile, do make up a majority. So criminal is a sizable minority of what courts deal with. And so I think that, I'm just proud to say that in order to prepare myself for this moment, before trying to step into this role, I went and got civil litigation experience so that I would be more prepared. And I truly did. It was with the goal in mind of becoming a judge that I made that choice. And now I've got family law as a judicial officer. So those are my legal qualifications.
Wow. And what are your other qualifications?
Well,
I assume integrity, because you're interested in the fair adjudication of justice.
That's right. Yes. So, it's those kind of core commitments, I think, that any judge obviously ought to have, like to the rule of law and to the limit of your role. You only are trusted to do a certain thing, which is make decisions based on the facts presented and the applicable law. It is not up to you to decide what the law is. It is not up to you to investigate the facts. Right. So you just do what you've been trusted to do. And so a commitment to the rule of law kind of in that sense. Also, though, I think, and I would call it a qualification, is I do have this core commitment to just treating every single human being with a certain level of compassion and respect and humanity. Certainly that is part of what motivated my work with people on death row. It's not the case that in all of those cases, innocence was even at issue. Sometimes guilt or innocence is really not the question at all. So, but you learn to interact with people who have done, are either alleged to have done or have been convicted of doing, or admit to have committing horrible crimes. Really, really horrible crimes. But you learn to treat them still with a level of just compassion and respect. And that doesn't mean that, there aren't serious consequences called for. Sometimes there are. And in any event, the law calls for it, and the law needs to be followed by any good judicial officer. But I will treat every single human being that appears before me and that's all court users, right? So that could be a prosecutor, a defense attorney, that could be the defendant themselves, but that could be jurors, that could be court staff, just everybody, right? With just that humanity, which I think is just totally critical for a good judge. Brian Stevenson, that hero of mine, says that all of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. And I really do believe that you don't have to, people shouldn't be defined by their worst moments. And so anyway, committed to compassion, committed to the rule of law, and just committed to, integrity, doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular.
Yeah, that's good to hear that part.
And I mean, the other just thing I think I have going for me as a candidate is just I'm just deeply rooted in Yolo County. So I'm really not running to become something new, because I'm really already doing this work. I mean, sure, I would like to have the title judge instead of commissioner, and I would like to have a better commute from Davis, but I live in Yolo County. I grew up in Yolo County, and I've been deeply involved in this community. So that just speaks to, and that's not a qualification per se, but it speaks to just, I think, my motivation. I mean, that's why I'm running, is to bring my services and everything that I've learned, in my legal career, and all of my values and all of my skills to the service of my home, which is Yolo County.
Yeah, that's meaningful. And it's really, I mean, the fact that Brian Stinson was your hero, is your hero, says a lot about your values. I mean, that tells people a lot about what you care about.
Sure.
And, gosh, my mind's going in two different question directions. Let me decide. I guess what one of them is, this is, I guess, a lead into the campaign, how it's going question is, who else is endorsing you? Do you have endorsements you can speak of?
Yeah, absolutely. Really proud of the endorsements I've gotten. It really makes me, well, it's a good feeling to get the trust of community leaders and their vote of confidence. So in addition to over 50 judges, and those judges many of them are Yolo County judges, 2 active Yolo County judges, Judge McAdam and Judge Rahill, and then retired Yolo County judges, Rosenberg, Mock, Warner, and Reed, and then lots and lots of other judges, including from Sacramento, many of whom work with me directly every day in a family law assignment, and many other judges too. So very proud of that, of course. But I also have just the support of just various community leaders, like 4 of the county supervisors have endorsed me, all 5 of the Davis City Council members, all 5 of the Woodland City Council members, the majority of the City Council members in both West Sacramento and Winters, all 4 mayors in Yolo County have endorsed me. And then just a lot, the sheriff of Yolo County has endorsed me, the undersheriff, who is my brother. My brother is the undersheriff in Yolo County, but a lieutenant, a captain in the sheriff's department. So yeah, and just, you can, and I would encourage the listeners and viewers to take a look at ryanforyolo.com, and you can see my whole list of endorsements there, because beyond those active city council members and supervisors, county supervisors, there's a long list of former mayors and former city council members and former supervisors, and also just people in the community who do all sorts of things, school board members, lots of those in both Davis and Woodland. And then in addition to that, so it is a nonpartisan race, and we judicial officers, but also just judicial candidates, are subject to various ethical rules about speaking to politics or policy. But I can share, and am proud to share, that I'm supported by the Democratic Party. So I do have the Yolo Democrats, the Woodland Democratic Club, the board of the Davis Democratic Club just voted yesterday to endorse me, and the college Democrats here at UC Davis. So I've got those groups as well. And also, just recently, the Sacramento Bee endorsed my candidacy.
who's left? That's a strong list of endorsements.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very proud of it. And, and I do think that the reason that I was able to earn that trust, well, again, the judicial experience is a big part of it. I think a lot of people see that and think, well, if you're already doing the work and doing it well, then that's a good reason to support you. And that's probably the biggest reason why I have so many judges supporting me. But those community leaders, I think, valued too just my involvement in the community. As president of the board of the Davis Schools Foundation, I was really involved in supporting our public school system here in Davis. As a community member panelist of the neighborhood court program, I participated in this restorative justice program that we have here in Yolo County. As a human relations commissioner for the city of Davis, I helped address prejudice and discrimination in our city. So I think I laid the groundwork to gain all that support a long time ago with all of that, just public service more broadly.
And people know you. I mean, that's how people got to know you.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, as you said, you're local and you're involved in the community.
Exactly. Well, and I planned ahead too, and I married a Davis girl, so I've got her. She's also similarly deeply rooted in the community. I mean, both of us are kindergarten through high school here in Davis, and her parents are in town. My parents are in town. My brother's in town. Her two sisters, they're in town with their families, and just obviously when you grow up somewhere, especially a community like Davis. Well, and I think it's true in particular of Davis that a lot of people stick around or they come back. So a lot of the people that I went to school with are raising their own families like I am here, which I think is just a function of Davis is a pretty special place, and it's a good place to raise a family. So
yeah, I was just it just came to my head was how much would if you become the judge, will your courtroom be dealing with immigration issues?
Not directly, because immigration is almost entirely a federal law matter. So immigration issues like changing one's status, becoming a citizen, or getting a green card, all of that is going to happen in immigration courts that are federal. It can come up in kind of specific ways, so there's a law that allows for the children so if a child has been abandoned, and so there's a parent who is still in another country, and that child is now here with a different parent or somebody else, and they've effectively been abandoned by the other parent, or they've been subject to abuse. There's a law that allows a judge to make findings that those things are the case. And so they're called special juvenile immigrant findings. And if you make those findings, they can then take those findings to the immigration court, and that allows them to apply for a certain status that allows them to remain in the country lawfully. And so as in family law, we see those. So we see petitions for those findings. And so, we'll deal with that. The other way that immigration is affecting state court right now is immigration enforcement at courthouses has been something that has been something to worry about, especially in recent months, and maybe some reason to believe it would continue. And even that, I'm cautious on speaking to policy issues, and I am not speaking to policy issues. I'm not taking a stance on what the federal government is doing, but the state courts need to ensure that the court is open and available, and that people feel safe coming to it to get their issues adjudicated. And so, for example, the Judicial Council just recently voted to require state courts to keep data with regards to civil arrests that occur at the courthouse. And a big part of that is to track whether there is immigration enforcement activities happening at courthouses, just so the scope of the problem can be understood, and then, you know, and then the judiciary, you know, what would be able to address it better.
That's helpful to know. Thank you. So finally, I'm going to let you talk about, we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. How's the campaign going? And what do you like about the campaign? And is there anything you dislike about having to campaign?
Sure. So I think it's going well. You don't know, necessarily in a local race exactly how it's going, because, you know, we're not going to spend our limited resources in a local campaign on polling. I mean, there's really no polling done. So there's no way to know exactly how it's going, and you never feel like it's going great. You're always worried about, oh, but well, should we do this? Should we do that? Or how can I be everywhere at once? And so, you know, it went real well in the beginning in terms of obtaining those endorsements. As I was meeting with community leader after community leader and gaining their trust, that felt great. And I've enjoyed, what I've enjoyed most is, well, first, just having a reason to get out into the community just more than I otherwise just would. And in fact, I have to say that when I became a judicial officer, I took a step back from my kind of civic engagement, because there are things that you just can't, like, for example, I was like I said, president of the board of the Davis Schools Foundation. You really can't participate in fundraising like that as a judicial officer. So I had to come off that board, and you know, and a lot of civic engagements, certainly not all, but can have a certain political angle to it, and you can't really participate in politics in that way. So I kind of took a step back, and so it has been enjoyable to get back out into the community more than I had been the last couple of years, and just being at various events and engaging with people. But my favorite part is just knocking on doors, as it turns out. I didn't know that I would like that part, but knocking on doors and just talking to just, you know, whoever answers, and just telling them, you know, hi, I'm your neighbor, or, you know, I live in Davis and I'm running for judge, and let me just tell you about myself. And you get to hear what their concerns are, and you just get to meet people. That has turned out to be my favorite part. I think the worst part is I mean, you know, I've got a wife and 2 kids at home. They are not, you know, I'm not as attentive to them as I like to be in normal life, and I'm busier than I want to be. I mean, it's just an unsustainable level of busyness. But
I imagine,
you know, it has an end point. So
yeah. Well, 2 more questions. One is, we have 3 minutes, so
okay.
What did people tell you? Like when you knocked on doors and you told them you're running for judge, and they wanted to tell you their concerns. What are their concerns? What was expressed to you that are concerns?
Yeah, so I mean, so you get it ranges from you know, concerns about like crime, and it can go in one direction or the other. Like sometimes people want to know if you're going to be tough on crime. Sometimes people want to know if you're going to be, I don't think the right word is lenient, but are you going to recognize that mental health factors in, substance abuse can factor into what gets somebody into the position that they have committed or just been accused of a crime, and how are you going to deal with those issues? So there's a lot of people want to talk, I would say, about criminal law, but there's plenty of people too who interact with the court system through family law. You know, a lot of people get divorced, a lot of people have kids, a lot of people have kids with a partner that they're not currently with, and so a lot of people have interacted with the family law, and they want to talk to me about that experience and how I approach it. And I would also say that what you get a lot is just, oh, judges are elected, and how does that work? And I didn't know about this, and just wanting to learn about the process. Yeah.
I've learned a lot just in this conversation. Is there anything? And I know you're a very constructive person based on the conversation we've been having. Would you have any concerns if your opponent was elected and to be judge rather than yourself? Like what would be missing if you weren't elected?
Yeah, so, you know, my opponent and I are getting along great. We text each other, just kind of encouraging messages. I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but plenty. I think it is, I hope that we are modeling what is possible in this world still. And maybe that's in part because it's a judicial campaign, which is that people can just explain to the voters, why they think they're the right person for the job and the better choice. And so, I think Yolo County will be well served, regardless of the outcome. I think what I would just say is that and some of it's what I've already said, but what distinguishes me is that I already have that judicial experience. And I do think that is big, right? So I am coming in day one, ready to do the job. I'm already doing the job.
That is big.
The other thing is just that my opponent has always been a district attorney, and her support is mostly law enforcement. And I know from experience that both district attorneys and public defenders view the world through a particular lens. And that lens kind of focuses more and more as you do it, because you see the world somewhat differently. And I'm not asking voters to trust that I can flip that switch now. I flipped it years ago. I went to do civil litigation, and then I became a judicial officer. So I'm not suggesting that, prosecutors can't become good judges. Many, many have. But I just, that distinguishes me is all.
Yeah. That's an important point. Thank you so much. We are out of time. Thanks for answering all my questions.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate having this conversation with you. So again, thank you to Ryan Davis. And I want to thank our engineer Rebel and our producer Dean Piper and all the listeners and viewers for your continued support. And be sure to tune in next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to It's Your Voice on Talk4 TV. Or w4cy.com. Thank you so much. And may we all have enriching conversations in diversity.